What's moral but illegal? Sleeping in your car when you're too drunk to drive. Pirating content that has been abandoned and can't even be purchased anymore. For example, an out-of-print book or a game that isn't sold anymore. In Japan, recycling someone's garbage without permission. Touching their garbage at all. You could use a discarded couch and save it from the garbage dump, but be arrested for it. Grabbing thrown out food from a grocery shop's dumpster. In many countries, speaking out against the malicious and corrupt actions of the government would certainly fall under the category of moral but illegal. As an American doctor who takes Medicare, I'm not allowed to waive fees for procedures or charge a patient less than what our officially set rates are, even if they don't have insurance. I'm also not allowed to ask a doctor from a different practice what a certain insurance company pays them for a service, as this has been deemed antitrust. Donating unused insulin to those in need, medication in general. Once it's left the pharmacy, it's no longer considered safe, not even so much because of tampering, though people can be terrible and try to poison those they hate, but just storing things under the wrong conditions can render them useless to dangerous. Grabbing thrown out clothes from clothing stores, brand new stuff that just didn't sell or was out of season. Truly wasteful and probably a terrible. My mom used to drive behind strip malls with me as a kid, and we'd find all sorts of good stuff. Pier 1 Imports used to have some good stuff. So did Burlington Coat Factory. Wow. I always thought the clothing would get damaged in some way to prevent this. I've seen videos of people just slashing t-shirts open before throwing them away. When I worked in a tea store that went bankrupt during COVID, we received instruction to throw everything away. Some stuff obviously was sent back, like mugs and loose leaf tea, to be sold on the online store. My manager was awesome and let us take everything else. I have years worth of napkins, disposable cloths, tea sachets, and even a brand new kettle. Best manager I ever had. She just didn't see the point in throwing away perfectly good things. In Germany, putting your empty beer bottle next to the trash can in cities instead of into the trash can. It's in principle littering, but it makes it so bottle collectors don't have to crawl through the trash. There is a deposit on the bottles. Sleeping in your car when you're homeless, or sleeping anywhere that's not a hotel or your own bed for that matter in the United States. Seriously, how did we get so bad to make homelessness illegal? Also, it's illegal to be a whistleblower in this country. Look what happened to Snowden. Defending against a bully in school, apparently, or reporting a bully, you get the same punishment as your bully because you were involved in a fight, because you were hit, pushed, etc., or helping someone who is being bullied. My son was expelled for helping a student that was being beat up. I always taught him to defend the person being picked on. There was a kid that bullied others, and several parents had already complained. The bully, 12 meters, was on top of a kid, 10F, punching them in the face. My son, 11 meters, pulled him off and punched the bully in the face and torso, knocking the wind out of him. The cops were called, and my son was expelled for the rest of the year. The bully was as well, and the girl was suspended for a week. Good old zero tolerance policy. And I should add that we put our son in private school for the remainder of the year. The bully and his little sister ended up there as well. We talked to his parents and they were nice people who agreed that their son was in the wrong. The bully decided to beat up a student again, but this time it was his little sister. My son and several other kids jumped in and stopped him, but this time only the bully was punished, banned from the school. Public vs private school policies in this case were stupidity vs common sense. Flashing your high beams to warn oncoming drivers they are approaching a speed trap. I'm a police officer and I can vouch that in my jurisdiction it is illegal, but will get thrown away in most court cases, just for the fact that there are about a dozen reasons you could be doing that. You could be signaling for them to slow down. You could be alerting them of an accident. Hell, you might have just done it by accident. I've not once pulled anyone over for this. However, to my knowledge it is legal in many other places. Where I live, Euthanasia. Having had to watch a relative waste away as they could no longer eat properly, had no clue who they were, or who anyone else was, and was just so scared how is making them live or wait until they starve, or dehydrate. The moral choice. I agree with this. I lost 2 close family members to cancer last year and they were miserable, and in pain for the last several weeks of their lives. The hospice nurse actually told us the amount of pain medicine we would need to give them if we wanted to put them out of suffering. They said it's common for families to do so when their loved one is ready to go. Assisted suicide. A terminal illness where there is no cure or the treatment plans aren't working and all you're doing is delaying the inevitable, and the road ahead only has more pain and suffering for the person. There is a point where it feels cruel to keep them alive. The option for having a painless way to go out in a safe environment should be there. Mental illness is the gray area. It's harder to pinpoint a definitive. This is where it becomes an option point for depression, anxiety, OCD, etc. because it is so variable. My mom had terminal ovarian cancer and died when I was 11. The tumors were very large and did so much damage to her intestines and spread to them that they had to remove a very large amount of her colon and she ended up with a colostomy bag and urine bag. She couldn't keep any solids down and would even throw up many liquids and soups. After about a year from her diagnosis, by the time she was close to dying, she was basically a skeleton and didn't even have the strength to lift a cup to get herself a drink. She essentially starved to death, while the tumors that had metastasized and drained what life left she had left out of her made her life a living hell. Her last day she went into shock and was staring off into the distance, unable to move or speak words. Then she stopped breathing and finally was free of the suffering. Knowing the slow, horrible, agonizing death that she had to endure makes me feel a lot of anguish and anger that she had to go through that. No one should be forced to live through that with an inevitable death down the line. Not letting people die peacefully when the alternative is that is abhorrently immoral. Period. Stealing animals that are abused or neglected. I feel like determining abuse is a gray area that I would prefer being up to officials than random citizens. People get so crazy they deem any outdoor dog abused, obviously chained up, malnourished or injured animals should be reported to a shelter or animal rights group to be investigated and saved. But breaking and entering is a no-go. Refilling parking meters for other people. Years ago, I worked in an affluent town where parking spots were at a premium. This town also had a notoriously efficient parking enforcement troop. As I mentioned, this was an affluent town, so the real crimes, domestic abuse, assaults, etc., were rarely reported to keep property values high. I digress. Sometimes I would get to park a block or 2 out of my way to park on a residential street that didn't require a permit. Otherwise I would be forced to feed the meter $2 for 2 hours. Then after $4 for 4 hours. If you didn't move your car, then you would find a citation on your windshield without exception. So, I would take the change out of my cup holders when I had some and feed meters I saw going low in my walk to work. One day this parking attendant saw me from across the street feeding a meter and shouted for me to stay where I was. She darted towards me, completely ignoring the crosswalk. Haha. Asked me if that was my car. I asked, what did that matter? She persisted in my answering her question, but ignoring mine. So, I just told her I had to get to work and went about my day. The next day it was like a sting operation. I fed 2/4 into a meter I saw had only 20 minutes remaining. No sooner did I turn the handle than she came up behind me from the side alley. She's shouting at me like I had smashed storefront windows with Molotovs. Next thing I know, she is berating me about how much I was costing her personally and the town in lost revenue by doing this for the past few weeks. She wrote me a damn citation for almost $100. I of course went to the magistrate to fight it, and he dismissed it without a thought. Felt good until she found out what car was mine and was Johnny on the spot with parking tickets from then on. Fun fact, the town soon after raised enough money to install digital solar powered meters so they could just automatically fine you the microsecond the time limit lapsed. However, by accident I realized that the machines were inoperable on overcast days. So, on my way home from work, town was almost deserted by 9 PM. I took egg and charcoal from the kitchen I worked and would rub that on every meter I walked by. Never once was I stopped for vandalism.